What happens when an artist whose entire career has been a masterclass in chaos sits down in the quiet of a studio and declares, not with regret, but with conviction, "I was right all along"? What follows when a figure built on controversy decides to reframe their own narrative, not as a cautionary tale, but as a story of vindication? This isn't just about setting the record straight. It's about seizing control of a story that has spiraled into 1,000 different versions, a digital folklore of fame, betrayal, and survival. It's a calculated move in a high-stakes game where public perception is the ultimate prize. Is it a genuine attempt at clarity, a strategic rebranding, or simply the next chapter in a career defined by keeping the world watching, unable to look away? The line between a redemption tour and a victory lap has never been more blurred. In the world of modern music and internet celebrity, few names evoke a reaction as immediate and polarized as Tekashi 6ix9ine. He is a figure synonymous with a meteoric rise, fueled by an aggressive sound and an even more aggressive online persona. His career became a spectacle of viral hits, public feuds, and unprecedented controversy, culminating in a federal case that shook the foundations of his fame and the music industry itself. After a period of relative silence, a calculated re-emergence began. Not on a stage, not in a music video, but in the controlled environment of the long-form interview, a space where narrative can be meticulously shaped. Today, we are dissecting his recent, extensive conversations on VladTV and the Danza project, platforms known for their deep, unfiltered dives into the lives of hip-hop's most compelling figures. These weren't just interviews, they were carefully chosen arenas for a public reckoning. In these hours of testimony, Tekashi 6ix9ine lays out his defense, not before a judge and jury, but before the court of public opinion. He presents his version of events, piece by piece, justification by justification. He's no longer just the subject of headlines. He is the author of his own defense, arguing his case with a logic that many find compelling and others deeply flawed. We will explore his story as he tells it. We will analyze his logic as he presents it, and we will examine the rules of the game as he defines them. Our goal is not to co-sign or to condemn, but to understand the mechanics of this public relations gambit. Is this a masterclass in narrative control, or a desperate attempt to outrun a legacy? We'll place his claims against the backdrop of industry norms, media framing, and the very public record he seeks to rewrite. This is a deep dive into the anatomy of a comeback, the strategy of a survivor, and the complex relationship between art, crime, and celebrity in the digital age. It is up to you to listen to the arguments, to weigh the evidence, and to decide for yourself if what you are hearing is the sound of sense being made, or just more noise. Before the rainbow hair, the face tattoos, and the global headlines, there was Daniel Hernandez, a kid from Bushwick, Brooklyn. He grew up in a world far removed from the polished gleam of mainstream entertainment, a world defined by the rhythm of the streets and the unfiltered energy of a neighborhood in constant flux. It was a place where visibility meant survival, and silence meant being forgotten. This environment, a crucible of creativity and struggle, would become the bedrock of the persona he was about to construct. He wasn't just a product of his environment, he was a student of it, observing the dynamics of power, attention, and survival that played out on the sidewalks and subways every single day. Then came the explosion. In the chaotic, algorithm-driven landscape of the late 2010s, Daniel Hernandez transformed into Tekashi 6ix9ine. He didn't just enter the music scene, he detonated it. He weaponized the very tools of the digital age, mastering the art of viral outrage by feeding the platforms exactly what they craved: conflict. The strategy was one of calculated extremity, a visual identity so loud it was impossible to ignore, and a sound so aggressive it demanded a reaction. He embraced a persona built on confrontation, turning every online interaction into a spectacle and every music video into a declaration of war against subtlety. This wasn't just marketing, it was a form of performance art where the line between the artist and the antagonist was deliberately and profitably blurred. He understood that in the attention economy, controversy was currency, and he was determined to be the richest man in the room. His rise was meteoric, and his fall just as spectacular. A highly publicized federal racketeering case led to his cooperation with the authorities, a move that shattered hip-hop's code of silence and made him an industry pariah. After serving his time, he re-emerged, not with an apology, but with a thesis. In a series of new, candid interviews, he's begun to meticulously deconstruct his own myth. He claims that nothing was accidental. Every feud, every outlandish stunt, every line crossed was a deliberate move in a much larger game. He's not just explaining his past, he's reframing it as a masterclass in manipulation. According to him, the chaos was a tool. The controversy was a shield. He argues that he was never a victim of the industry machine, but its operator. He presents himself as a master strategist who understood the system's weaknesses and exploited them for fame and fortune. He claims he played the system instead of getting played. This narrative reframes his entire career, shifting him from a reckless provocateur to a cunning tactician. But it also raises a crucial question. If we strip away the noise and analyze the moves he made, what does his logic really say? Is this a genuine revelation of a hidden grand plan, or is it the ultimate performance? A final, desperate attempt to control a narrative that has long since spun out of his grasp? To understand the controversy, we first have to understand the narrative. It's a story that has been carefully constructed, piece by piece, not just through lyrics, but in interviews, documentaries, and even court testimonies. This isn't just an artist's backstory, it's a legal and public relations strategy. At the heart of this narrative is a claim rooted in profound personal tragedy. It's a defense that asks for empathy, or at the very least, a suspension of immediate judgment. The first pillar of this defense rests on a foundation of early, destabilizing loss. He consistently brings up the story of his childhood, painting a stark picture of abandonment and grief. He talks about his biological father leaving when he was just an infant, creating a void where a paternal figure should have been. This isn't just a footnote in his story. It's presented as the original wound, the first crack in the foundation of his world. Then, in a cruel twist of fate, his stepfather, the man who had stepped in to fill that void, was tragically murdered just steps from their family home. He was only a teenager. This second, more violent loss is framed as a cataclysmic event, one that shattered any remaining sense of safety and stability. The world, as he tells it, became a place where even the people you rely on can be violently torn away without warning. It's a worldview defined by sudden, irreversible absence. Compounding this trauma was his expulsion from school at the age of 14. This event is portrayed as the moment the system officially gave up on him, pushing him out of the structured world of education and onto the unstructured, unpredictable streets. Without the anchor of school or a stable father figure, the narrative suggests he was left to find a new family, a new code, and a new way to survive. These three events, his father leaving, his stepdad's death, and his expulsion, are presented as a powerful, tragic trifecta. They are not just sad stories from his past. They are positioned as the very architects of his present-day persona, the building blocks of the man the world would come to know. He says those losses shaped everything that followed. The implicit message is clear and powerful. You would break too if you lived my life. It's a direct challenge to the listener, an invitation to walk a mile in his shoes before casting a stone. The argument is that his choices, however destructive, were not made in a vacuum. They were the desperate maneuvers of a young man forged in the crucible of loss, who learned early on that the world is a hostile place where you either fight or you get consumed. But this is where the narrative becomes complex, sparking a fierce debate that extends far beyond one artist. Context matters, undeniably. A person's history provides a crucial lens through which we can understand their motivations and behavior. It can illuminate the path that led them from point A to point B. But the central question remains: at what point does a compelling explanation bleed into a convenient excuse? Critics are quick to point out that millions of people endure immense hardship, poverty, and devastating personal loss without turning to the kind of behavior he has admitted to. They argue that while trauma can explain a predisposition towards anger or distrust, it does not grant a license for harmful actions. To this way of thinking, using a tragic backstory to justify subsequent choices is a deflection of personal responsibility. It shifts the blame from the individual to their circumstances, effectively absolving them of their agency. Does understanding make it acceptable? Is this a genuine plea for understanding or a calculated strategy to manipulate public perception and mitigate consequences? This question hangs over every claim, forcing us to weigh the heavy burden of the past against the personal responsibilities of the present. He admits taking the beat for Gummo, not by accident, by design, says he knew how to make it pop better. Some call it theft. He calls it strategy. When does being smart cross into being shady? He says he's not scared to call out names, truth teller or troll, maybe both. But in 2025's hip-hop world, honesty and clout are hard to tell apart. He insists the game was never fair, so he rewrote it. To some, that's survival. To others, that's rebellion without responsibility. If rules don't apply, where's the line? 4 claims: trauma, strategy, truth, rebellion. Do they add up to a man taking control of his life, or rewriting the story to stay relevant? Drop your answer below. What do you believe?